it was really hard for me to haul ass out of there with a canoe and a paddle. There's something 15, 20 yards right inside these woods that is following me step for step. When the one yelled at me, that like I said, it was really hard for me to haul ass out of there with a canoe and a paddle, but I did my best. That was probably the one of the scariest moments. My son and I were out, same lake, different area, and it was about 4 in the morning, and we had heard a couple tree breaks through the night, but nothing, no yelling or anything like that. Um, we were it was about 4 in the morning, and we're coming into an area that we knew we were going to pull up and change clothes because we knew the sun was going to be coming up just after 5, and we wanted to pull up and stop for a little bit, change clothes, change fishing gear so we can now fish for day stuff rather than the catfish at night. So it really didn't. We're pulling up to this like gravel area where we pull the canoe up, um, and I heard something just off to the right run up the hill and over the other side of the hill. Now, I was not paying attention if it was bipedal or my thought was there's a deer. We just scared a deer off. So we pull up to the bank, and my son gets out and he said, "Hey, I'm going to walk up the hill here and go to the bathroom real fast. So give me a minute before you come up here." I said, "Okay." So I'm sitting in the canoe, it's pitch black. All we have on 50 lumen, headlights on. That's all we have. We have no gun. We have no nothing. You know, we just these little headlamps. So I wait about 4, 5, 6 minutes, I guess, and I get out of the canoe and I start walking up the hill, and he's literally like, I look up, he's like 20 yards ahead of me, looking straight back at me he's got his finger in front of his mouth for me to be quiet. So I come walking all the way up there, and I walk right up to him and I go, "What's the matter?" And he goes, "There's something 15, 20 yards right inside these woods that is following me step for step. I took 5 steps, it took 5 steps." He said, "I took 5 steps back and it took 5 steps again." He goes, "Walk with me." And I went, "Hell no." And he goes, "I'm going to turn around and walk." He goes, "See if it does it again." I said, "Okay." So I'm just sitting there. So he takes 5 steps really fast, slams on the brakes, and this thing mimicked his steps and took a sixth one and slammed on the brakes. And I just turned around and walked back to the canoe. And I was like, "Oh, hell no." And he goes, "Dad, come here." And I was like, I walk back up, I walk up back to where he's at. And he goes, "Let's go in and see it." And I go, "Are you nuts?" I said, "Casey, all we have is these little tiny lights on our head." And he goes, "Wait a minute. You've been dying for this moment your whole life. Now when we got one 15 feet from us, you're not going to go with me?" And I was like, "Casey, we have no lights. We have no gun. We have no nothing." And he goes, I go, "I'm going back." And literally, I'm only 25 yards from canoe anyway. But my thought was I would have felt more comfortable if I was on the canoe and out in water rather than this thing. And I heard it clear as day. It absolutely mimicked his step. So I turned around and started heading back. He takes another 20 steps forward to see if it would do it again, which he said it did. And as he's walking back to the canoe, he makes it all the way back to the canoe, but the last 20 steps or so that he took to the canoe, it stopped in the woods. And he goes, "Let's go up and look." And I went, "Hey, the sun's going to be up in about 20 minutes. And he's like, "Man, I can't believe you won't go." I was like, "Case, we have nothing." I said, "What if we walk in there and it's a 12-foot, Sasquatch? What are we going to do?" He's like, "Fine." So the sun came up, enough that we could, walk in there and see. And sure enough, 15 yards in, there's a path that walks right through there, mostly pine needles. I think they walk in pine needles all the time just to quiet their steps down so they're not hurt. Um, but Yeah, that was really. To be honest, it started out about 8 or 9 years ago, and I've been in the woods my whole life. I've been hunting and fishing, and I've been out. You know, I catfish at night all the time. I never once though really had any strong belief of Bigfoot's existence. If it did, my thought was it was up in the Pacific Northwest and stuff like that. So I never really gave it any thought, you know, around my area or anything until about 8 years ago, and I was hiking up in the Catskill Mountains in New York, and the person that I was with, we were miles from anywhere. Um, really no human activity. A it was colder than we were expecting it to be, so there really weren't any hikers out or anything. And I looked down and I saw a footprint that had toes, but it didn't have claws on it. And I I figured I considered that it could possibly be a bear, but it was more human shaped. And I noticed that there weren't any claws on it or anything like that. And we just kind of looked at each other, and I was like, "Wow, that's odd." So it was about 4 months later. I'm back in Ohio, and I'm at one of the lakes out east. I was at Clendenning Lake, I believe, and we were camping out there, and we were sitting out at night just by a fire. It was a campground area, but it wasn't. I mean, it was pretty isolated, but it was by the water, and we heard a howl that lasted almost a minute, and it was one of the eeriest things. I knew right that it wasn't a coyote. We don't have wolves in that area. We don't have bears in that area or anything, just basically deer. We have some bobcats, no mountain lions or anything like that. And I just heard the howl, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit. So the next spring, I happened to be over, and I have a canoe, and I do a lot of canoeing at night. I was at Salt Fork Reservoir, um, probably midnight, 12:30 in the morning. I'm out by myself, middle of nowhere, and about 50 yards. I'm about 50 yards off the bank, and about 50 yards up into the woods, probably about 100 yards from me. I hear a tree break, and I go, "That's odd." And then I hear another tree break, and a third, all within about 20 seconds. And I just like hair just stood up on my back, and I was like, "I'm out of here." So I left, and I went back to my camp spot, and I threw my canoe back up on my Jeep, and I went back to my campsite. I got up the next morning, and I thought, you know what, that was kind of freaky. So I'm going to go over to Piedmont Lake, which is about 20 minutes away, um, and fish over there the next night. I had a couple of nights off by myself. Um, so I go over to Piedmont, and I'm fishing there during the day and stuff, and it starts to get dark, and I kind of settle myself into this one area that's kind of shallow, good for catfishing. So it's dark out there. The difference between Salt Fork and like Piedmont, Clendenning Lake, some of these lakes, like Salt Fork, has an unlimited horsepower. So it brings in a lot of traffic for skiers, boaters, and stuff. And it's more of a party lake. Um, so there's a lot more traffic on it. Piedmont has a 10 horsepower limit, so it's considered a fishing lake. It does not get nearly the traffic. It's actually even more isolated. It's further off the highway than Salt Fork. Um, so some of these other smaller lakes that don't get the traffic, I actually feel like there's more activity and things that happen out there in these quieter lakes. The lakes are no smaller. Lo and behold, at night I'm sitting probably 20 yards off the bank, and I'm in a canoe, and about 100 yards behind me down the bank, I hear a tree break around 10 o'clock, and it splashed into the water. And my first thought was, for some reason, I didn't even think of the other three tree breaks from the night before. Could it have happened over here? Um, I kind of brushed it off as I didn't realize beavers were nocturnal. Could, drop a tree at night. And then about midnight, so probably this is about 10 o'clock, I hear the tree break, and it's dark, pitch black. All I've got is a little 50 lumen light on my head. And then about midnight, I hear a big rock splash behind me. And for some reason, I just didn't put the two and two together. And it was about 1:30 in the morning. And all I have is my phone, which there's no cell service, and this, 50 lumen light on my head. I'm 20 yards from the bank. It was about 1:30 in the morning. I'm just sitting there, and I didn't pay attention to crickets or anything like that. I wasn't paying attention to whether there was, everything quieted down or not. But literally 20 yards from me, I heard this thing yell at me with the lung capacity of an elephant. And I can do my best interpretation of it. I don't know if it was on the Sierra Woods or whatever, but I have heard somebody else's audio recording of it. But it sounded like a language. It really did. It was like 6 or 7 syllables. I'll do my best impersonation, but I know I won't get it right. But it was, and I just froze, and I was like, with the lung capacity of an elephant, this thing just was loud. It reverberated right through my body, and I froze. And about 3 to 5 seconds later, no more than 3 to 5 seconds later, the exact same vocalization came again from back where the tree break was, about 100 yards behind me. And man, the hair standing up just talking about it. I looked over in that direction. I couldn't see anything because I have this tiny light. That's all I have. So I froze there, and I hit my recorder button, like for video on my phone. And I sat there for about, it seemed like an hour, but it really was only about 4 or 5 minutes, hoping that he would yell again so I could get it on the recording. And then it dawned on me at this point. I went, I can't even hightail it out of here. I'm in a damn canoe. And I reached down and I pull up my anchor, and I realized I'm only in 4 foot of water. And I realized, okay, I'm 20 yards off the bank in 4 foot of water. This thing can just walk out here. At that point, I just dropped in, and as fast as I could paddle out of there, I got out of there. That's when I realized that these things are real. And it really was a terror. I mean, I don't want to say terrifying experience, because it was, once I was out of there, I wasn't nearly as afraid. And I thought, wow, that's just cool as can be. I can't believe that just happened. Told a few people, of course, everybody thought I was nuts. Kind of gave up on telling them. The majority of the experiences that I've had have been, in that area around Piedmont Lake. I have a bloodhound that I take with me. We go up, we search through the woods and stuff like that. There's just tons of tree breaks and so forth that are unexplainable. My bloodhound will track anything. There's a couple places at Piedmont that we've gone over on a boat where we've gotten onto the land, and we would go up into certain areas. There was one area that I got up on top of this hill, and I definitely smelled just. I'm in the most pristine wilderness of it's a beautiful area. It's just clean air and everything. And all of a sudden you walk in there, it smells like a city dump. And so I got out of there right away. I went back just a couple weeks later, a couple months later or something, took the dog back there, and I was going to try to set up some trail cams and stuff. And the dog went up towards the top of the hill, and I normally can't get him out of the woods. I have to call him, 100 times, because he's tracking everything that his nose can smell. And we were up there about, I want to say 8 minutes. I didn't even get any trail cam set up. And he comes just trotting down the hill right past me, didn't pay no attention to me, jumped in the boat and would not get out. And I was like, oh. So I was like, if he's not going up there, I'm not going up there because I'm by myself at this point, just with me and him. So get back in the boat, went back later that summer, we went back up and he got off the boat and he probably walked about 20 yards off the boat, turned around and got right back on the boat and would not go back up. We were in the same area. We went to a couple of other spots and stuff like that. He got off the boat and, he, walked through the woods and everything else, sniffing around, in other areas. We went back to that spot the third time. He wouldn't even get off the boat. So I was like, he's not going up there. So I almost feel like there's something right in that area. I did manage to get a trail cam up there. Didn't get anything captured on trail cam or anything like that. So, but I go up there several times a year, usually just to go fishing. But at the same time, I don't want to say I use myself as human bait in that aspect, but if you just go up there at night and just sit in the boat, they come to you and they throw rocks at you. They, throw tree trunks at you. I've had probably 35, plus experiences, probably 30 plus experiences on my own. My kids have been with me a couple of times. They've had experiences. My son has seen a couple on thermal. I feel like there's a lot of them in this area. There's it's a 8,000 square mile area called the Muskingum Watershed Conservatory District, I believe, and there's about 10 lakes in there. They're all state parks, so this area is all protected and so forth. But that whole area of eastern Ohio stretches down, into the Wayne National Forest, into Athens, the Marietta area, the Ironton area. These are all protected areas, and they're basically at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. It's really just, I feel like there's a lot of activity up in there and stuff like that. I don't go by myself. I don't.
I've been a BFRO investigator since 2013. 2012, I was just going through the internet browsing. I didn't even realize the BFRO had expeditions. We went and we had all kinds of activity on that expedition. The first night we had Knox and a group. The next night watched one on a thermal imager for about 15 minutes. And I had an encounter at the along the river there. And one night at 3:30 in the morning, I was camping along. We went remote. Me and another couple and another guy all took this campsite remote away from the state park. And it was the last night and everybody had gone to bed. I couldn't go to sleep. I was tired. So tired I couldn't go to sleep. We had a long hike that night. And something crossed the river, heard it cross, came up behind my tent and was messing around, and I actually saw it push its hand down on top of the tent at 3:30 in the morning, and they were kind of doing some gibberish kind of talk around, and everybody else was snoring. I was sitting there scared to death. And so the next morning we get up and I told them what happened, and we started looking around, and I went to meet with Russ and to fill him in on everything. And they actually found a track in the river. It was kind of like a sandbar type place, and there was a partial track there. We tried to cast it. It didn't come out very good. We weren't very good at that stuff then. I personally had a Class A in Kentucky on a BFRO expedition in 2019. And I had a Class A. A group of us were out. I watched one cross the road very quickly. It didn't last very long, just a few seconds. It was so fast. He was running across the road, but I've had where people have got actually zapped or lots of vocals, knocks, whoops. Quite a few people have had Class A's.
For those of us who are not BFRO, explain what a Class A's experience would entail.
Class A is where you see the creature and you're pretty much, it's definitive. It's nothing else. You can see the body, the face, and it can't be explained by any other way that it's, it's a Bigfoot. So, the class B's, or we look at, or knocks, tracks, uh, vocals. We like to at least have two class B's before we'll actually do a report on it. Or two class B, say you have a track and a whoop, or a whoop and a knock. Knocks seem to be really common, and where they knock on a tree or with their mouth or however they do it. And so the class A's, that's what everybody wants to have, is the class A, the C1. I saw the one I had was at night, and I'd like to see one about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, a little bit more visible. Well, the
Yes.
class A that you saw, it was at night, it was going across the road, but would you describe what that looked like to you?
It was huge. The body, its shoulders were so wide. It was tall. I would say in the 7, 8, 9 feet tall. It was about 80 yards from me, and its stride was incredible. It went across to about 20, 25 feet in 3 steps. And we recreated it with, I was on with Charlie Raymond, the Kentucky Bigfoot organization. He was actually hosting a BFRO expedition. He does one every year for Matt. And we were down in Western Kentucky in an area called Land Between the Lakes. And spent a lot of reports in the area and stuff. So we had activity every night in this area we were at. And we had split up. It was an intersection of two Forest Service roads. And we set up, me and another gentleman set up right there at the intersection. We were kind of the center of the hub. And 2 ladies went down one direction, and everybody kind of split up, went 4 different directions. We stayed in the middle. And the girls were down the road about 180 yards maybe. And we had two really loud knocks right across the road from us. So I went up with my therm. It was therm in that area, and I saw their white lights come on, and I kind of became concerned and kind of went that area, was watching that area, and there was enough white light where I could see watch it cross the road. It illuminated that area. Watched the road. They never saw it. They were looking down kind of at the ground because they thought they'd found a track. That's the reason they lit it up with white lights. Normally we don't use white light while we're in the woods, but it was big. It's in fast and quiet, and we went down in the area it came out of. There's a deep gorge, and it was really hard to get in and out of. We had a big guy with us. He was like 6'6" and 350 pounds, and he recreated it. It dwarfed him. So it was quite the adventure. You come back and you kind of, when I first saw it, I was like, what did I just see? You just kind of question yourself. And then you think about it, process it, and you realize that what you saw, it was wow, it was there. And we called Charlie Raymond on the radio and told him. He came up. We looked around and did some recreations and went from there. And we'd had a lot of knocks and whoops in that area. So it was a good active area. It's only been 2 days since it had happened. He and his buddy were hiking, and they were camping on the Uharri Trail, which is, I think it's 28 miles. They were a little over halfway, and they were camping, and then his buddy went to sleep, and the Bigfoot, I don't know, I think it was multiple the way he described it and everything, where they come in and were actually throwing rocks at them, and big rocks, stomping around, screaming, all kinds of stuff. This guy was terrified. He actually cried on the phone when I interviewed him. I try to calm him down, tell him, you're actually really lucky. And it's hard to tell somebody that.
How did he get out of there? Did he just wait it out, or what
He
happened?
waited it out. His buddy never woke up, and he was there, and he waited it out. And finally, they left. And as it left, he thinks it was about a mile away, it let out a blood-curdling howl, and he said it rattled him. And they went away finally, and obviously he was in their turf, and they wanted him out, and wanted them out. And the next morning at first light, they got out of it. He told his buddy what happened. Says, "I'm out of here. We got to go." and they packed up and left. So there were
But
a lot of
not hurt, just a lot of terrifying noise and the rock throwing and
terrifying.
that
Yeah,
sort of
I've
thing.
never done any type of report where anybody's been physically, I don't know of any physical altercations between us. Mainly, they just want you get you out, and if you get in their turf, maybe they have young in that area or whatever. Who knows? And a lot of times they just don't want you there. It's their area, and they're going to do intimidation. I know a lot of people have had, bluff charges where they'll come through the woods, shaking trees and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, trying to get you out. So, and I had a story of a guy down at Snowshoe. Uh, this was a secondhand. I was working down there one winter at Snowshoe Ski Resort here in West Virginia, and I came up to work for the winter with them, and they found out I was into Bigfoot research, and the ski patrol guy says, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Sure, sure." He said, "I could tell you a story from last summer. In the summer months there, they have a lot of mountain bikers that come in there and hikers and all kinds of stuff. And this gentleman was a ex-military. He was a current Florida State Trooper. Was on a solo hike going toward his called the Fire Tower Trail, and he got up about 3/4 away, and a Bigfoot confronted him, chased him down the mountain. Uh, it would have caught him if he'd wanted to. And at the bottom of the mountain, he met the ski patrol, and they had to sedate the guy. He was so scared. Another guy hammock camping in the Uharis had a really kind of scary experience where one was circling his camp, and he actually went and got with his kids and his wife back in the tent. He was like, they were really terrified. And around here, you just gotta talk to people and let them know that these things are there, and it's so startling to them when it's like their reality has changed. So there's a lot of stuff out, a lot of people on. I took a report, did a report for a BFRO investigator in Western North Carolina where he had a road crossing and stuff, and he sketched it. We did a lot of things there. He watched it cross. It was real near the Appalachian Trail.
This one where they surrounded his campsite, and then he got all of his family back in the tent. Did they likewise just wait it out? And
they waited it out overnight, and the next morning they got it. They packed up and left. So this was a state park campground in the Uharis. It's along one of the rivers there, Baden Lake campground, and it's fairly well developed campsite, but its woods are all around. It's a national forest, and so it seems like areas, national forest, state parks, anywhere those places you're at, you got a real good. I think a lot of people just don't understand what's going on, or they come into camps and stuff at night while we're sleeping. I think they hear snoring, and I think they get their curiosity gets up, and they come in and maybe snoop around camp, check out coolers, all kinds of stuff, just and see what's going on.
I've actually spotted at night with a much bigger lumen flashlight. I have eyeshine 5, 3 being at Piedmont Lake, 2 being at Caesars Creek in Warren County. I saw one cross the road, actually kind of near me where I live now, outside of Dayton. It was this actually, I saw this one in April of last year. I saw one go across the road. I could not see any sort of detail of it or anything. It was probably 100 yards ahead of me. It was at night, my lights were on it. I was kind of going down a hill, so I actually had the whole area in front of me lit up. This thing went across the road. It probably traveled 30 yards in maybe a second and a half, and it looked like a black ghost going across. It literally just whisked across the road. There was definitely something there. And I happened to notice that where it was going across, there was a telephone pole off to the side. And I looked at, from what I could see, the telephone pole went in, and I went back the next day actually as well, that it looked like it could have been around 10 foot tall, but you know, in comparison to where the telephone pole was and so forth. I actually, I actually got from where it was. I went back into an area that I believe it would have been coming from, and I did manage to get what I believe is a foot casting of it. The only reason that I actually can comprehend that I saw the one go across the road where it was at. I'm on a couple different like sites that you know, that talk about Bigfoot and stuff like that. And there was a guy that actually posted, and he said, I live in this little town, and there's a Bigfoot that lives behind my house. Okay, well, the town that he said is literally 3 miles from me. And I was like, I tried to contact him. He would not, he was not interested in giving up. I mean, he just said he lives by this town. He didn't tell me where. He wouldn't give me a street name. He wouldn't give me anything. I don't know if he thought I was just going to come over there and try to hunt it or something. But what I did, I just went on. I went on to Google Maps, and I just started looking at all the dense wooded areas in this area, and found some areas that I thought were, you know, that potentially could do it, could hold a family of them. And lo and behold, it was a few months later. I just happened to be driving down there at night and saw this thing go across. And so that's the only reason I put it together. That's the closest thing I've had to my house, but it was only because that other guy had posted that he apparently had one in his backyard. Despite not giving me any information, I kind of figured out where, you know, the area that he was talking about. It's looking at the density of the woods. I mean, we have a lot of crop farming out here and stuff like that, but there's patches of woods in the center of, you know, these areas that you could probably count on one hand how many times somebody's going to walk through these woods, you know, over a couple of years. I mean, they're just so isolated patches of woods. And from up above, you can just see that this is an area that could possibly hold a family. I actually got another foot casting recently, within the last month, from a state park, and I casted the footprint, and it was 16.5 inches. I took it to the ranger station, and they were very excited to see it. They were very excited to, like, you know, look at it and so forth, but they weren't enthusiastic about reporting it. So I just let it go at that point. I don't think I'm ever going to, you know, prove this to the world by any means, or, you know, their existence, but, you know, I feel like I've had enough experiences that, you know, I just seen one recently that was posted, or that the BFRO was involved in Warren County back in January of this year, which I think is ironic, is that before all this happened, I actually lived in Warren County, about 2 miles from where this one was seen, and reported. I told my kids about it, and, you know, they found it kind of ironic as well. So, but I'm glad that there's one down there, because when the two that I spotted first at night were down in Warren County, and I really didn't want to say anything about those because, you know, I almost feel like people would have thought I was even more nuts, because that's even closer to home. You know, so when you say, well, I've seen them out in, you know, Eastern Ohio, they're less likely to call your bluff or anything, you know, if, you know, or say you're lying if you said, hey, I saw one 10 miles from my house. But I'm pretty sure that just with, you know, the investigating that I've done in this area, you know, Montgomery County, Clark County, Miami County, in Ohio, probably within, man, I would say 30-mile radius of me, there's been acknowledgement, or I've seen signs of probably 7 or 8 different families where I believe there's Bigfoot families that live, and normally they're in protected areas. I mean, just whether it be a state park, whether it be, you know, some nature preserve or something like that. But if there's if there's, you know, 400 or 500 acres that really nobody goes on, it's a perfect place for them, you know, to live, even right, you know, in amongst us. It is more of a hobby. I have I've put many trail cams out. I've never gotten anything on a trail cam. I've tried to do audio things at night, just picking up noises and stuff. One of the odd things is that once I started like trying to take it serious and trying to get, see what kind of information I could get, I invested in some night vision and infrared cameras and stuff. What I really find odd is that whenever you take out infrared or night vision, it's like the activity either decreases or stops. So it almost makes me wonder, do they have the ability to see, infrared or, night vision? Do they see infrared like we see a flashlight? They're much more intelligent than we are. I think they have abilities that, far greater than us. But it just seems like whenever you take out the infrared and stuff like that, especially like, from a sitting position in a boat or something like that, it's like they just stop and disappear. I only have my own suspicions. I can't, do I know what it is? No. I guess from my understanding, my belief, my experiences with their behavior and stuff like that, just the things that like, there was a tooth found at Salt Fork, I guess last November or something. It was like 4 inches long, looked exactly like a human tooth, but giant. And apparently somebody was able to get DNA on it, done on it, and it came back 97% human and 3% unknown. If that is the case, I mean, could it be a Neanderthal type human that managed to survive this whole time anyway? Avoiding people. I mean, there's just so many documentations that from ever since all through America, since the beginning. If when people say, well, why doesn't the government find the DNA and say that this is an animal? Because we come up with 7 or 8 new animals every year, most found out of the Indonesian jungle or something like that. But why don't they come up, why we got these DNA things? What if it's not an animal? What if it is a Neanderthal type species? When the DNA comes back unknown, I don't know if that's something that's hidden as well. I don't. When I was at the park and the rangers were all interested in seeing it, they didn't say it, but it almost is like, well, this is a small park, and if they know there's a Bigfoot here, we might lose some of our campers, or there might be people coming in trying to kill it or something like that. So I don't know if that's part of the cover up. I don't know if but honestly, I don't know. I think there's enough evidence out there that something exists. I don't know if I'm going to ever find out if that in my lifetime, if they actually, say it does. I believe it's a flesh and blood critter. There are, as an example, they talk about cloaking. Now, do I believe that it can cloak? I don't know. But here's what I do know: is you have a chameleon, which is a land animal that can cloak and change colors. Okay, we have octopuses that live in the ocean and can change colors to their surroundings. Is it possible that this could do it? I guess if you open your mind to it. Others have done. I mean, we have land and water species that can change colors. Can a furry animal change colors? I don't know. That to me is a little bit deeper than I try to think. But is it a possibility? Yeah. Do I think that they have supernatural? I think that they have. If you look at 2 dogs that'll sit there and sit together, that they're talking. They just talk. It's almost like a telepathic that my dog and cat can sit there together, cat's tail's moving, so you know that they're talking, but it's all telepathically. Okay, do they have that type of telepathic ability? You know, that they can tell whether we are, you know, if I go into the woods, can they tell whether, you know, by my energy or whatever, can they tell that I'm there for hostile reasons or am I there for friendly reasons? You know, I don't know. I just believe that their senses and their intelligence is far greater than we have. And, you know, as far as cloaking, I don't know. I have no clue. Um, as far as that goes, that's I don't supernatural abilities. I'm just going to say that I believe they're smarter than we are. You know, somebody asked me. They said, "Do you think that it's a species of humans that didn't evolve?" I kind of chuckled and I thought, you know, if you compare that to like humans, um, you know, if power went out, we'd all die. They wouldn't. Okay, did they not evolve, or did we just digress, or whatever? You know, we became dependent on everything as humans, where they're not dependent on, you know, anything from us. So, you know, is it? I just believe that they're smarter than we are. They've adapted, and you know, that's what that's all I can come up with.
Personally, think they're a relic hominid. I don't think they're a monkey, or you know, I think you know they're kind of halfway between us and maybe a hybrid. I just don't. I think if they were apes, we'd already have one in a zoo or something. They're way too intelligent, and they live their lives, I think, just to stay undetected. They don't trust humans. I think probably in the past they've had some bad run-ins, maybe with hunters, uh, maybe shooting at them or whatever. But I really think they're a relic hominid.
Why do you think it's been so hard to get any kind of proof of them?
They're nocturnal. They're extremely intelligent, and you're in their backyard. They know probably where every tree, every rock, everything is in their areas, and they are very wise to what's going on around them. They seem to be two steps ahead of you all the time, and they go in areas where they're very rugged. They're extremely athletic. Uh, it's hard to keep up with them. You know, they just. I think if you see one, it didn't want you to see it. I think they probably don't like being seen, and it's just some of the terrain here in West Virginia and some areas I've been. It's you know, very few people ever get off the trails, and I think you have to get off the trails and really to really and be in small groups, maybe by yourself, to get a sighting. And it which and being at night, they've got an advantage. They can see well at night, and, so they've got the upper hand on us for sure.
There's a lot of talk about some strange things happen around Bigfoot. Don't know if it has anything at all to do with Bigfoot or not, but nonetheless, it's been reported. Some of the strangeness are like orbs, and people see craft. Some people see, you know, they appear, disappear, all of that. What's your view on that?
I've seen orbs in areas where they're at. Where I had my class A that night, we had some orbs. I should have told you about that earlier. We had a couple of orbs in the area. I haven't seen any what I would think are unidentified area phenomena or anything like that. I've I'm just not. I'm not totally sold on the portals and the all that stuff. I think they're just flesh and blood. I think they're just. I think there may be something in their hair that maybe diffuses light, makes light. You know, a lot of animals make some super camouflaged. Uh, but I just think that the portals. The thing I can't. The weirdest thing I've had is orbs in orb reports and areas. And it's really hard. I mean, I've actually gotten some stuff where I'm going to try. I've got some radio or IR sensors and some other stuff I've actually carry a lightning detector now to look for electromagnetic energy and things like that. And I've had some weird stuff happen at a farm in Kentucky where my lightning detector said there was 117 lightning strikes when I got up the next morning, and there wasn't a thunderstorm within 500 miles. So who knows? Talk about zapping, electromagnetic energy. I don't think we're going to know until one's captured or found, or, you know, I'm just really surprised that one hasn't been hit by a car. And I personally, the BFRO, we're a non-kill organization. I personally could never harm one unless it was going to try to harm me, or I felt like my life was in danger. But and but I don't know. There's so much we don't know about these things.
True. So it appeared that the areas where Bigfoot was, maybe there's a little bit more electrical energy there.
Could be. Yeah, it seems like sometimes this is just I've only done it on one expedition so far. It's a new thing, and so we're going to find out. I'll have one with me on this expedition and this thing this weekend we're going to do, and just see. And I want to try. It's a lot of experimentation trying to figure out new ways to investigate or detect them. So we're going to try that and see what happens.
I have tried gifting, but the first time I gifted, I went in too far and then couldn't find the area where I gifted. Second time I gifted, the things weren't taken. I think I had only waited 2 days before I went back to look. I left them there. That was back in the fall. I haven't gone back to see if they were taken. I think I left a stuffed animal, a small stuffed animal, and a necklace. I think on both occasions I left a small stuffed animal and a necklace. So they were not taken, and I had only waited a couple of days from when I put them there to go back and look. They were still there, so that was back in the fall. I have not been back to see if they're gone.
Did some peanut butter in Kentucky. Never really had much success. I know people have done it, mixed reviews. I personally haven't in this area, but I know a few people have done it. We get into habituation situations where they're coming around people's houses a lot at night or whatever, gifting, and either they're terrified and want to get rid of them, or they are curious and want to try to be friends with them. I tell them, be careful what can of worms you open. If you're gifting and putting food out, if you don't continue the food, they get upset. They'll come and start slapping on your house and at night and all kinds of things. So, but personally, I haven't done a lot of gifting around here. On the expedition, we will try out some stuff, try to find a stump or something, and maybe put some peanut butter out, some shiny objects. Just try and see if we can get some response from them. When we set up camp, get everybody there, and then we have a meeting. When everybody gets there, checks in, introductions, and we talk about what to expect. It's a mixed group. You'll have a lot of old timers that have been on a lot of them. Then you'll have newbies, as we call them, and then you'll have repeaters. And the newbies, we kind of tell them what to do. You're going to have red headlamps. You can do this. And we go into groups. I try not to keep the groups smaller, no more than 6 people, 4 to 6 people. And we'll have 2 investigators, experienced people with each group, to help them along, let them hear what's going on. I mean, a lot of these people have never heard of barred owl, and they hear that for the first time, and they're, oh, that's a Bigfoot. No, that's not a Bigfoot. Not everything in the woods is a Bigfoot. So we try to make sure that they understand. And then we, during the expedition, we'll do, I've got 3 speakers that are going to do various topics, from audio to new equipment that we're using in Bigfoot. We usually have to have, each group will usually have at least one thermal imager that records, and we try to teach them, show them how to use the thermal imager. I really encourage everybody to have an audio recorder with remote mics, and because audio is probably the easiest evidence to collect. You can You know, you may not see it, but they'll let you know they're there. There are a lot of, between knocks and whoops and screams and yells. But the newbies, we really welcome them into our group, and it's incredible. My best friends now I've gotten from the 2012 expedition, the first one. We just became really close, and we've together. So you build a lot of camaraderie. We do dinners every night for everybody. I've got a lady that cooks and is going to help us cook and everything for night. And we sit around and we have the speakers and we talk about our night operations, where what trails we're going to go on, and we split up the groups. You can have some people that are really experienced hikers, and you can have people that don't hike a lot. We'll actually go to a spot and pull out our chairs, sit there and listen, and watch the night. Sometimes we'll even build a fire and it's where we're at, and just sit there and try to be as normal, human behavior as we can. We don't want to be knocking and yelling all the time. It's not like, it's that's a big, they come to you, you don't go to them. Basically, they know you're there, and try to arouse curiosity. And with the new people, they get there, we try to show them research techniques and everything. So that's basically what what entails. We sit around the campfire a lot when we get back and tell tales, and it's a great time. Well, the three main things are water, cover, and food sources. I want to look through a lot of deer. We look on the BFRO site for reports, and even local reports in the area, some of them that aren't even on the BFRO. And we look at that area, and then we scout it, take a look. I'd be honest with you, I think just about any uh, West Virginia is just, it's so remote. Lots of areas. The Monongahela National Forest is 1 million acres, and so we try to stay in that area. Find a research area, we go in and look, and if we get activity, then that's where we look to put our expeditions at. And Matt Moneymaker had already had activity there before, and no one had gone back there for a long time. So we're going back this fall, or actually September, kind of late summer, early fall, and just see what happens. It's got everything it needs. There's water, cover, lots of deer, lots of wildlife, uh, and it's just a beautiful area. You just want something remote. I like to look for older growth trees, which mostly West Virginia, this is the second generation. The trees, they were a lot of logging done at the turn of the century, so second generation. And in that area, look for just cover. Hilly terrain seems to be really good, and the areas out here. I've got another research area down in Randolph County, West Virginia, that I do a lot of research and that activity there, but its campground's not big enough to really sustain a large expedition like this.
I always just chuckle. I say, you know what? Find yourself a canoe, go out at night and just sit. They'll come to you. It's scarier that way because you can't see anything coming. I think a lot of people who just go out and look for, I want to go look for Bigfoot and have a camera with them and stuff like that, your chances of seeing that are just almost nil, I believe. I think most of your daytime sightings are just coincidental. They're just such a nocturnal animal or species.
Personally, haven't gotten a thermal image hit where I could go, okay, that's definitely Bigfoot. A lot of guys have got good thermal imaging stuff. I haven't been lucky enough to yet. I just kind of upgraded to one of the thermal imagers at the BFRO cells. I'd had this little FLIR Scout TK. It'll let you know that there's something hot there, but it's really hard to get any definition. We had a couple of hits, what we thought were hits in Land Between the Lakes, but a lot of people have. I mean, it's definitely changed Bigfooting. I think the drones with thermal imagers is really going to open up a new avenue of research, and but hopefully I'll get one soon. A guy, the BFRO investigator in Tennessee, he's gotten lots of stuff. They got ones crawling on the ground. You can actually see its shoulder and elbows. It's trying to sneak up on them. Tree peekers, I've seen them peeking out from behind trees. Images. There's a lot of stuff out there, and a lot of the BFRO guys have been doing it a lot longer than I am. I couldn't afford, thermal imagers are just now getting to the point where they're affordable for the general public. But these guys, they got into it early with the thermals, and have had quite a bit of success. Some of them have, and some of us are still looking. Kind of same things that ghost hunters use, just to see. I've gotten really interested in this show, Skidwalker Ranch, and a lot of the stuff they use there. I was like, man, we could probably try some of this in Bigfooting. So I looked at the equipment they're using, and we'll give it a try.
I had it happen to me one time at one of the local parks where I found the footprint recently. That was about 2 years ago. I went out. I was shed hunting in the morning, crack of dawn. Nobody was really out because it was like middle of March, fairly cold. But I was out shed hunting and walking past an area, a really big thicket. Heard a whistle. Kept walking 100 yards down. Heard the whistle again, but exactly paralleling me. And about another 50 yards, again, paralleling me again, heard the third whistle, and I was like, yeah, I'm out of here. I couldn't see it, but I definitely, something followed me in on that occasion. That's the only 2 times I've had it following. But a lot of rock throws, a lot of tree breaks. Had a rock hit the back of my canoe one time. That freaked me out a little bit. But for some reason, I keep going back. I think that I guess I've gotten to a point where I know there's something out there. I would like to, I don't want to find out a little bit more. I would really like to see one up closer today. As scary as that might sound, I would like to see one. I very much respect them. I had thought about, hey, I can take you guys up, and show you where all these, this activity is and stuff like that. But I really, they're there because they're trying to avoid people. I feel like it would disrespect them if I, kept taking other people up in there and so forth. So for me, I've learned that I'm not going to convince the government that they're there. I might be able to convince a couple people in my, local surroundings and stuff like that. So I look at it as though I know something's there. And I accept it. I'm careful in the woods, but I'm not going to stay out of it.
Keep your eyes and ears open. I just, try to get on an expedition. If you have interest and want to do it, go out with people who've done it, and be with them. I'm not really a big advocate of going by yourself. Too many things can happen other than Bigfoot. Keep your safety. Make sure your people know where you're at. I'm more fearful of humans than I am Bigfoot. So just be careful and enjoy it. I mean, you're not going to get activity every time. I've been on usually 1 out of every 3 expeditions we have good activity, and a lot of stuff is very subtle, and just use as much, recorders, and learn to use your equipment. And then hopefully you'll have something happen.
I have not seen any kind of orbs. I've not seen any kind of things like that. I believe I've seen a UFO, but that was when I was 18. It wasn't even in this area, but I've never seen anything like in conjunction with, Bigfoot activity or something like that.
And it wasn't even in the same area as you saw the Bigfoot.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, tell me about the UFO incident. That interests me too.
Oh, it was very simple. Me and a buddy of mine, we were 18. We were down in Kentucky. dang, now down kind of in the direction of Hazard, Kentucky. And we're just sitting out in the evening. It got dark, and we saw this thing, and it looked like a floating football field that looked like it was probably a mile or two away. It was probably, I mean, it could have been further away than that. We don't know. But it looked like a floating football field because it was just getting dark. And this beam of light comes down like into the, like down to the ground. It's not making any noise or anything. And we're watching, and it's moving. So we're watching this, you know, beam go slowly across, you know, basically it was like just a pasture and cornfields and stuff like that. But we watched this beam go across. It was just moving across for like, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds. And we're both just looking at it, and we acknowledge we're both watching. It's like, what? And then the light went off, and then it was like it disappeared, like it just like slowly poof disappeared, like, you know, and it was gone.
Was that a nighttime sighting?
Right as it was getting, yeah, right at dusk.
Okay.
I mean, you could see it was kind of square and flat, kind of looked, it looked like a floating football field. Like this is weird.
Yeah, that's really strange too.
Yeah, but yeah, we both acknowledge that. Yeah, don't know what the hell that was.